holding a sign at a rally, marching with the crowd, speaking out at a city council meeting. Can you be arrested for doing any of that? The First Amendment says you have the right to protest, to organize, and to demand change. But how far does that right actually go? Today, we're talking about the power of protesting and petitioning the government. We'll explain what protections are granted by the First Amendment when people choose to exercise these two freedoms. Simply put, you have the right to protest and to bring your grievances to your government. The government can regulate how you do it, but only within reason. You might remember me talking about time, place, and manner restrictions a few episodes back. Local governments are allowed to put restrictions on when, where, and how people protest. That could mean requiring a permit for a large demonstration, limiting amplified sound after certain hours, or prohibiting obstruction of traffic. However, these restrictions must be content neutral. That means the government cannot treat a protest differently just because of what it's about. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you're protesting a war, a policy, a corporation, a law, or anything else for that matter. The same rules are supposed to be applied across the board. Still, the rules on this are often vague. Vague laws and overly broad restrictions can give law enforcement or city officials too much power to decide who gets to speak out and who doesn't. Courts tend to strike down these kinds of laws because they can be abused to silence unpopular dissent. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Next, we have the right to petition. Petitioning the government isn't just about collecting signatures. It's one of the oldest democratic tools we have. You see it in action when people testify at public hearings or write letters and emails to their elected officials. You see it when organizers push for new laws and changes to existing policies. And you see it when a group of people stands together to say, this isn't working, we need change. In Arizona, the right to petition has played a big role in shaping state history. Arizona is one of the few states with a strong tradition of ballot initiatives where citizens can vote directly on proposed laws. We've used people-led ballot initiatives to enshrine the law to abortion in our state constitution, legalize recreational marijuana, and to raise the minimum wage. Direct democracy has always been part of Arizona's political fabric. To give us more insights on our rights according to the First Amendment, let's pass it over to someone who knows a thing or two about mobilizing communities to enact change. Harrison, take it away.
Including the freedom to protest in the First Amendment was an incredibly self-aware decision by our country's founders. The right to protest was almost guaranteed to be used against the government itself, but that was the point. Like many other rights in the Constitution, the freedom to protest was shaped by colonial experiences. Protest was the spark that ignited the American Revolution. The 1770 Boston Massacre began when a group of Bostonians gathered to protest British military occupation in their city. When British troops opened fire, 5 civilians were killed, marking the first fatalities of the Revolutionary War and a lasting example of what can happen when peaceful protest is not protected by law. More recently, from the Black Lives Matter movement to protests opposing ICE actions and climate activism, there is a robust tradition of protest across our country. But the government's relationship to protest has always been complicated, especially when protest challenges its authority or its interests. Today, that freedom is under real threat. Now, as we see students suspended, arrested, and even having their visas revoked for simply speaking out, the gap between what the law says and what happens in practice is growing. On the same campuses where students once helped establish their own right to protest, we're now watching those rights be rolled back, and that should alarm all of us.
Thank you, Harrison. It's important to remember that the First Amendment protects unpopular opinions, even when they're offensive or upsetting. In the 1963 case Edwards versus South Carolina, the Supreme Court ruled that peaceful protesters could not be arrested simply because their message made people uncomfortable. That decision has had lasting effects. Whether it's a civil rights protest or a controversial political rally, the core principle is the same. Protests cannot be shut down just because someone disagrees with the message. That's why the ACLU has defended the right to protest across the political spectrum, including causes and groups we strongly disagree with. Protecting protest rights isn't about endorsing every message. It's about preserving the right to speak, gather, and challenge power no matter who you are or what you believe. The ACLU of Arizona works year-round to protect the right to protest. That includes challenging anti-protest bills at the Arizona legislature, advocating for students' and immigrants' rights, organizers who are often targeted by police, and holding law enforcement accountable to ensure that protest rights are respected. We know that protest is how change starts, and we're here to defend that right, whether it's in the streets, on campus, or at the Capitol. The right to protest and petition the government is more than a legal principle. It's a civic responsibility. It's how people hold power accountable, it's how communities demand justice, and it's how democracy stays alive. You don't need permission to care, and you don't need approval to speak out. Protest is power, dissent is patriotic, and the First Amendment is the blueprint for building a better future. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found the information in this video and series helpful, remember to subscribe to our channel down below to stay up to date on any new content we release. Until next time, remember, you have rights. Make sure you know them.